Greetings, my name is William White, and I am here to introduce the 2025-2026 season of Harmonia Orchestra and Chorus, which we are calling Testaments. The idea behind this season is to see how composers make their great statements in music. Now, of course, we deal with music that also has words, and some of those words will be part of the testifying, the testimonials that we will encounter as a part of this season. But really, it's a look at how composers, through the language of sound, through the art of music, make their statements of their emotional truths and how that has changed and developed over the decades and the centuries. So we're going to start with a concert on Saturday, October 4th. This will take place at Shorecrest Performing Arts Center, and that's very important. This concert is called A Joyous Trilogy, and the name of the concert comes from the title of the first work on the program, which is Quinn Mason's A Joyous Trilogy. Now, this is a really important piece that we had the honor of commissioning and premiering in 2020 under the baton of the composer. Since that time, Quinn Mason's A Joyous Trilogy has gone on to take the world by storm. It's been performed by more orchestras than I can rattle off, but some very prominent ones. I'm very excited about getting to actually lead this work, and of course, it's a great fitting way to celebrate the 5-year anniversary of the piece. Now, next up on the program will be Antonin Dvorak's Te Deum, which is a really interesting piece. It's the last piece that he wrote in Bohemia before coming to the United States, and it was intended as his debut work for his first concert in New York. Now, on the second half of the program, we're going to have music by Dvorak's great sort of counterbalance in 19th century symphonic music, or I guess in the second half of the 19th century, Johannes Brahms with Brahms' First Symphony. The great C minor symphony, sometimes called Beethoven's 10th Symphony, because of what Brahms did to continue that symphonic tradition that Beethoven set out in his first 9 symphonies. It's a piece that goes from tragedy to triumph. You know, it's in C minor, but of course it ends in a blaze of C major, one of the most rip-roaring finales ever written, and a great way to launch our season. The second concert of the season is called Dances of Death. And this concert will take place on Saturday, November 8th at First Free Methodist Church. And the theme here is really the Dies Irae. Now, that is, of course, an ancient poem written in the 12th century that also has a Gregorian chant melody that has followed it throughout the ages. That tune has been quoted in many works like Liszt's Totentanz or Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique. I mean, the list goes on, but crucially, the composer who probably made the most use of it of anybody was Sergei Rachmaninoff, the Russian composer. So the Rachmaninoff Symphonic Dances, which quotes the Dies Irae extensively, is the main work on the second half of the program. And on the first half of the program, we have music that's sort of in conversation with that same theme. So, for example, we have a piece of Rachmaninoff's own from his great choral masterpiece, The All-Night Vigil. We're doing a movement of that ends up being quoted in the symphonic dances, much like the Dies Irae theme is. Now, the centerpiece on the first half of the concert is a new work by yours truly, a setting of the Dies Irae, the poem, an independent setting. You know, so often we think of the Dies Irae as like a movement of the Requiem Mass, like, you know, of course, the great Dies Irae from Mozart Requiem or Verdi's Requiem. But it's always struck me that the Dies Irae, it's just sort of this, it's this independent poem that just kind of got shouldered into the liturgy of the Requiem. And there's no reason that it has to be surrounded by all of the Requiem's prayers and liturgies. It's a pretty amazing set of images. You know, of course, it's about the day of judgment and about the judge who will separate the lambs from the goats and the blessed from the damned. And I'm writing a pretty, what I would call a dramatic cantata. And we'll get the concert started off with a piece that has influenced me tremendously, a composer who I'm definitely channeling in in this dies irae, and that is the 20th century Russian composer Alfred Schnittke. We're just going to start with a great little concert opener for one of his film scores. Our third concert of the season, as always, is George Frederick Handel's Messiah. And I can tell you how great Messiah is and how great our performance of Messiah is, but you don't have to take it from me. We got an amazing write-up in the Seattle Times this past year about our glorious tradition of Messiah performance over so many decades and what defines our Messiah with the two harpsichords and the interplay between the two. And it's kind of a maximalist performance of Messiah, a grand chorus and a grand orchestra. You know, we do two performances of this piece, one at First Free Methodist Church on Saturday, December the 13th, and then the next day, Sunday, December the 14th at Bastyr University Chapel. And we've now got an opportunity for patrons to get the premium seating at Bastyr University Chapel, the center aisle seating. So be sure to look out for that. And of course, premium seating is an automatic option when you order your season subscriptions, which I'm sure you're all going to run out and do. So just keep in mind that that's a great perk. After the new year, we start off with a concert called Reflections. Now, the title of that concert is coming from the title of one of the pieces, which is a brand new piece by one of our longtime collaborative composers, Huntley Beyer. Huntley was one of the very earliest members of Harmonia. Huntley was an oboist. I think he sang sometimes. He played recorder, did all sorts of things. But he's a tremendously talented composer as well. Has written large works for the organization in the past, big, huge oratorios. This is a more modest piece. It's a piece for choir and a small orchestral or instrumental consort, I would say. And it's a reflection on aging. And it's about what happens to the person and the body and the mind with the passage of time. And it's a very reflective and very interesting mood of the piece. So that's sort of the anchor. We'll have music by Samuel Barber, Henry Purcell, Rena Esmail, all sorts of great things. This is our annual choral concert where our Harmonia chorus really gets the chance to shine. And we hope that you'll be there for that on Saturday, February 8th at First Free Methodist Church. The next concert, going from our choral concert to our orchestral feature concert, is called Pathos, and this is taking place on Saturday, February 28th. We will be back at the North Shore Concert Hall in Kenmore for this performance. This is this wonderful new space, a purpose-built concert hall on the campus of Inglemoor High School. Just really a glorious place to make music. I guess the centerpiece is really a new work written by a composer that we've been collaborating with quite a bit in the past few years. His name is Carlos Garcia. He wrote a piece we've performed a couple of times, even just in the past 5 years since he wrote it, called Vast Array. And for this project, I asked Carlos to compose a new violin concerto. And he's going to write this piece for Rachel Lee Priday, a local violinist of tremendous renown, professor at the University of Washington. And that will be bookended by music from the Russian tradition, starting with Sibelius's overture to Karelia. Of course, Sibelius, the ex-Finnish composer, but of course very influenced by somebody from just, a hop and a skip over the Baltic Sea, that being Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, who will be represented with his Sixth Symphony, the Pathétique, which is one of the great tragic works of symphonic writing. Of course, with that blistering scherzo in the third movement, and then it's just like taking a red hot iron and dunking it in ice water when that just incredibly lachrymose fourth movement comes in. So Tchaikovsky's Sixth Symphony, great thing to look forward to on February 28th at the North Shore Concert Hall. Then we move on to another great Baroque oratorio by George Frederick Handel, not the Messiah this time, but Israel in Egypt. Now, the more I have learned about this piece, the more I have learned just what a pair, just kind of what a twin it is to Handel's Messiah. So these two pieces are really the pieces that made Handel's reputation as the first great classic composer. Not only are those the two pieces that made Handel's reputation, but in many ways, those are the two pieces that made the reputation of Harmonia Orchestra and Chorus, or certainly as it was then known, 30, 40 years ago, the Seattle Chamber Singers, and then as the Broadway Symphony, the Broadway Chamber Orchestra, Orchestra Seattle. This was one of our founder's favorite pieces, George Shangro. He performed it on many occasions. I think that this is going to be our 10th or 11th performance. It's been a good long while since the organization has done it. I think it's like 12 or 13 years. So it seemed high time to mount a revival of this great piece, which is so much fun. It's so colorful. Handel just delights in all of his tone painting. So, when the great plagues beset Egypt, you've got the frogs and the hail and the gnats and all sorts of things happening. And Handel just goes total ham with it. So come check out Israel and Egypt on March 28th. That will be a matinee performance at First Free Methodist Church. Our season closes with a concert back at Benaroya Hall on Friday, May 8th. Now, oh boy, is this a humdinger of a program. It's called The Planets, so you can guess, I'm sure, what the main work on the second half of the program is, and that is Gustav Holst's The Planets. I mean, just one of the all-time greats of the symphonic repertoire, a suite in which he depicts the gods after which each of the planets have named. So, I mean, you'll see on our postcards that, we advertise this with a depiction of the planets in the solar system, but that's just sort of shorthand. I mean, really, this piece is about astrology, not astronomy. When it starts off with Mars, that's not about the red planet, it's about the bringer of war. So, a huge orchestra, and what to pair that with? Well, we're coming back to some of my favorite music that we explored on my first season as music director here at Harmonia. That was in 2018, 2019, so this is my 8th season here. And that season, we explored the music of a little-known composer named Lili Boulanger, a French composer who wrote in the 1910s, basically. She died tragically young at the age of 24, but not before creating some true masterpieces. None more so than her setting of the Psalm 130, Du fond de l'abîme, Out of the Depths I Cry. This is one of the great choral orchestral works of the 20th century. Huge overflowing orchestra with a large chorus and organ and just, all the bells and whistles. And such a sort of tortured musical language that draws on Stravinsky and Mahler and even early Arnold Schoenberg. I've been looking for an opportunity to remount some of these pieces by Lili Boulanger for quite a while. And this is the perfect pairing because this music was written at the exact same time as The Planets was, right in the middle of World War I, essentially. So, I mean, it's music of the torture of the individual soul, but also the torture, kind of malaise and militaristic malaise of a society that's crumbling down around these people who are writing their testaments, you might say, in music. So that's the main stage season, but I don't want to neglect talking a little bit about the Harmonia Chamber Players series, which will take place this year. We're doing 4 concerts where our musicians get a chance to shine in smaller works, in projects that they are instigating and putting together. One of those concerts on January 24th will be a chamber orchestra concert where we will hear a symphony by Haydn and Dvorak's great Serenade for Winds, one of my all-time favorite pieces. But that is not something to sleep on. Those concerts have been getting very popular, and they are all matinee concerts that take place on Saturday afternoons at the University Unitarian Church. And then, of course, we do our big finale, our gala fundraiser concerts, which we found such a great home for those concerts at the Brocky Center at South Seattle College. This year, the show is called Peacocks and Pearls, and it's going to feature a piece, a song cycle in which all of the texts come from the captions of Martha Stewart's Instagram. Who would come up with such a deranged idea? I have no idea, but I have a feeling that whoever did come up with this idea will be there inhabiting the role of Martha Stewart on stage with a chamber orchestra accompaniment and, of course, going to these outlandish lengths to raise money for such a great cause, that namely being Harmonia Orchestra and Chorus. So that, in a nutshell, is the season. You will not be disappointed when you join us on this journey through great musical testaments in 2025 and 2026. See you then.